Hello guys, welcome to this training. It's this training we're going to discuss about the application bypass. So this is the agenda. We're going to discuss the overview, why we need this feature, what are the requirements for it, the limitation as well, and then we're going to go for the configuration. And once the configuration is done, we're going to do a lab for it. And then after the lab, we're going to go for the log review and the troubleshooting. So what is application bypass, right? So before I discuss about the application bypass, let me just touch upon the forwarding method. So let's say you have a Zscaler client connector installed on your computer, right? And you are using a tunnel 2.0. That means all the traffic, all IP port protocol traffic from your system is getting forwarded to the Zscaler data center through the ZCC tunnel 2.0, right? And that's okay, that's how it works. However, in certain situations, right, a certain requirement, you may have that you may want to bypass certain application traffic from the tunnel. What would you do in that case? In that case, you have a couple of options to bypass, right? One is that destination exclusion in the app profile, right? And other option is the application bypass, which we're going to discuss here today. So in application bypass, you have two options, IP based and the process based. What is IP based? IP based means you bypassing traffic based on IP, but there as well we have two options, predefined applications. And in that case, Zoom and Teams are already pre-configured. You just have to use them. The other and the option which is main, right, which is for you to create your custom IP based application. That's a custom IP based application. The second way to do it based on the process, right? So the process means application process, right? .exe, and there are certain criteria based on that you can bypass a full application traffic. That's what about the application. Now we're going to discuss about the IP-based application bypass, right? So the IP-based application bypass, as I mentioned, is based on the IP port protocol. Okay, you may have heard about, right, Zoom application or Teams application or OneDrive or Outlook or Slack. So any of these application, right, or maybe any other application you may have and you may using, and you may have a requirement to bypass that application traffic from the tunnel. In that case, you would use the application bypass. So Zoom and Teams comes under the predefined IP-based application bypass category because Zscaler has configured these applications for you. What you only have to do is that you have to just use them, right? You can just call these application in your app profile, and that's it. Now, for the custom, you have to create them. We'll go for the configuration part, but let's discuss the logic behind this application, IP-based application bypass. The logic IP-based application bypass uses is exactly the same what destination exclusion uses in the tunnel 2.0 app profile. So what happens in that case? You configure a destination exclusion when you log into ZCC, you do up, so many ways. ZCC downloads the configuration from the portal, right? And then it creates a list of destination exclusion IP addresses, which needs to be bypassed from the tunnel. Similar way, when you create IP-based application bypass, whatever IP addresses you have called there in your custom application list, these IP will be added in the destination exclusion list downloaded by the ZCC. So it's kind of a similar logic that it creates a list for it, and that's how it bypass these transaction, right? Now, in application bypass, as I mentioned, that you have a predefined and a process-based application bypasses, right? And the question comes here, if you have a destination exclusion already available and it uses the same logic, why do you need it? And there are a couple of very good reasons for it. The first one is, let's say you have a 10 app profile for 10 different process, right? 10 different department, and you have a single app, for example, app A. you want to bypass from the for these all 10 department. What do you do? And in that app A, there are 10 IP addresses that app A uses, right? So what do? You open the 10 different app profile, you go to the destination exclusion list, and you add all these 10 IP addresses one by one. Once you're done, traffic will be bypassed just fine, no problem. However, let's say after a month, the application A removed one IP address, right? They're not using that IP address for that application anymore. What you would do, you open these 10 app profile, remove that that not used IP from that list, and that's how it gets updated. Fair enough. However, let's say after a month, they add one or two more IP addresses, right, to that same application. That yeah, the application will all also start using this new IP addresses or new IP range. What are you gonna do again? You have to go to all three, all 10 app profile, have to add a new IP address, and this will be the back and forth process all the time. And this is this is too much work to do, because you have to do it on all the app profile. And if you have more than 10, like let's say if you have 50 or 60, and let's say if you have not only one and two IP, but there are more IP addresses you have to add and remove, then it becomes very hard to manage. That's where the application IP based application bypass is very handy. You create a IP based custom IP based application profile, you add your all IP addresses there, and you add and remove there only. You just call that profile in your app profile, right? And that's how it's very easy to manage, remove and add add IP addresses. And the next other way or other requirement you may have is that probably your destination exclusion list is filled up, right? You have reached the limit, because there is a character limit in that destination exclusion that you can add so and so IP addresses. So if that list is filled up, you can use the IP based custom application bypass. These are the very important reason you may need to use it. Okay. Now after this, what are the minimum requirement? The very most important requirement is that your forwarding method should be tunnel 2.0. If you are using tunnel 1.0, then this feature is not for you. It's not going to work. Okay. For the ZCC in Windows, you should have 4.3 and above a ZCC version available, right, and installed in the system. In Mac, this is not supported yet, but it may be supported in future. The use limitation is that it's only an IP-based bypass. You cannot use domain here. Okay. For domain, you have to use the pack file-based bypass method. Okay. Now, for the configuration, it's a very simple configuration. Two-step configuration. Create IP-based custom application, and then call that IP-based custom application to your app profile, and you're good. All right, we'll walk through that that configuration. But before that, let us understand how exactly it works. So once you have done the configuration on the portal, the ZCC application does an API call to download that configuration from the portal. That downloaded configuration you can see in the ZSC tree manager logs, right? And the tunnel log as well. Okay. Now, once you download it once, right, it keeps check it in a certain interval. It just checks for any updates on that application custom application profile, right? One thing to note, it doesn't download the full configuration every time, right? What it does, it creates a hash for each application, and then ID, it creates an ID and then also calculate the hash for it. And if there are any changes, right, if you have added and removed an IP address in your custom IP based application, then ZCC downloads that change only, not the full list, right? Now, when exactly this download happens, if you are doing a new enrollment of ZCC, probably you or policy update at this with the policy update is that custom application update also going to get downloaded. In case of ZCC keep lives, if you do manual force policy update, then And if you exit the ZCC and relaunch it, in that case also, that's get downloaded. And of course, if you restart the ZCC services, this policy will be downloaded. So this is about how it works. We're going to check this in a lab. But before the lab, let's just go through the configuration and check how exactly you configure it. Okay. Okay, so I have logged into the admin portal and the mobile portal. So let's walk through the configuration. First of all, you go to the administration, and from there, in the left-hand side, you would see the application bypass. In the application bypass, you have the option of IP-based and the process-based. Process-based is for another day. Let's discuss the IP-based. In the IP-based, you have predefined, and in predefined, there is a Microsoft Teams and the Zoom application already called, right? So these are the application which Zscaler created for you. You can simply use them in your app profile, right? You can see the last time they updated this application is on March 16, 2014. And similar way, this is the last time they updated for this Zoom meeting application. Now, if you want to check what are the IP port and protocol this application using, you can click on that view icon and you would get the protocol, port, and IP details here. So these are all the application which is used by the application Microsoft Teams, and that's what called here by the Zscaler. So this is a manual task for Zscaler, right? They have to do it. But let's say if you have a certain application which you want to do a bypass, you go to the custom section here, and from there you click on add application. Okay. Once you click on add application, you give it a name. Okay. And after giving it a name, you have this option to call the IP addresses, right? Uh, the ports and the protocol. So you define a port. In protocol section, you have TCP, UDP, and asterisk option. Asterisk means any, either it's TCP or UDP, both work, right? And then you call the IP addresses. So you can call a single IP address, a subnet mask as well, and you can call multiple IP addresses. So for example, I can go for subnet as well, let's say /24. Okay, I do a comma and I can go for another single IP address as well. This way, I can do the configuration of the IPs. Since this is for the any, I can add similar way for a TCP as well, or for a UDP protocol, and I can add one more section for example, TCP, right? So you get a 3 section here in the same application, and you can call multiple IPs there. Okay. Once this is called and you have configured it, you go to your app profile, and from your app profile, you call this in your tunnel 2.0 configuration. So for example, this is a DTLS profile. I open it and I go to the custom, tunnel 2.0 configuration here. And here I have called these predefined. Let's say I want to bypass these predefined, and you call the custom application as well, which he created, right? IP, custom IP based bypass. This is the way you do it. And as I mentioned, you can call this in multiple app profile. For example, let me do it on this. I have already done it. You can see this now. This is open. And now in the tunnel 2.0 configuration, you can see I can call this as well here. So what, as we discussed, this is the benefit of using it, right? Once you create it, you can call this same app bypass profile to any your tunnel 2.0 app profile, right? And if you want to add and remove, you just go to the IP, custom your application, and then you add IP address or remove IP address. You don't have to do anything on the app profile. Simply you edit your custom application. So that's all for the training. We will have a next training for this. And in that training, we're going to do the lab part, the logging part, and the troubleshooting part. So thank you very much for watching. See you in our next training. Till then, bye-bye.